we're live.
Awesome.
Rachel, thank you so much for making the time. But we were just talking about it before we hit record, just talking about DC, the electricity of it, a lot of energy. And I don't want to cut you off. I actually wanted to.
That's when you start yapping before recording, you miss all the good stuff, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
But
well,
you were saying,
yeah. Well, my dog is of course going to make an appearance during this podcast.
no problem.
It wouldn't be a live recording. Well, we're not live, thankfully.
Yes,
So
I'll make sure to keep your dog in
keep him
if it
in.
gets on
He's
screen.
pretty
Yeah.
like he has his own notoriety. Frank, my French bulldog. I'm
Nice.
wearing my Satoshi shirt as well today. Just let's vibe on crypto today. So I was just mentioning that I was at the Digital Asset Summit in Washington D.C., which was around the same time. I guess it was the same week as the big press gathering that happens in Washington. And I find it to be so electric right now, given having kind of Commissioner Pham up there talking about regulation and just all of the things that have changed in love or hate this administration. I think we can all safely say that like it's better for our industry what's happening right now. And just being in the room where some of these major conversations are happening it's incredible.
Absolutely. So I think it's funny. I think you're alluding to. Are you talking about the summit that happened? I want to say it was in. Was it in March or April?
So this was actually a separate event that was hosted by Time. So I have a partnership with Time for my media company. And so I was invited to go down to DC to just kind of document and reflect on what was happening. And it was a like invitation only event. There was probably only 50 people in the room. It was Commissioner Pham. It was the president of Circle, who obviously is the backer of the USDC stablecoin, and just some really just thought leaders from the space, just really reflecting on kind of what's happening right now.
So this was the event that you attended. I'm
Yes,
thinking of the one that was like Michael Saylor, Brian Armstrong, all of
no,
like the thought leaders like Sergey. Okay,
there's
cool.
just so many conferences to get to, Jeff. It's
Yeah,
like
no, it's fair
we
enough.
just even this week we have Base has obviously got their event on Wednesday, and then also the Sotheby's Art and Tech event is happening Wednesday, Thursday as well. So it's hard to kind of figure out where the most ROI is to go, right? As a founder, it's like which rooms do I need to be in?
That's right. And I think we're both, in a similar position with that. But I think it's the best advice that I've ever been given from a mentor was just you got to stay in the traffic, right? You don't know where it's going to lead you, but like just stay with it. You might not get every one right, but eventually if you keep turning stones, you're going to find the right place for you. But yeah, just going back on the thoughts on DC and the energy that's there. I agree. I mean, if you think back before this administration, and just to piggyback on what you said, it was really like startling. And I think a lot of people that are in Web3, when there was a question mark around it, didn't know whether they were going to even have an industry. So to go from that thought to now seeing new all-time highs with Bitcoin, with seeing all of the accelerated growth that we've seen within the industry. I mean, I was reflecting on it the other day. If you were to look even 2 years ago, 3 years ago at like how feasible was it to like actually use any of the protocols that are on chain? How many clicks does it take to get there? And then flash forward to 2025, like almost halfway through it now, or more than halfway through it, you're like, it's almost ready for bringing on normies. It's almost that easy. So to see the progression that we've had, it's incredible, not only politically and, in regards to legislation, but just as a entire industry, it's been really exciting for sure.
100%. And I think just kind of the intersection of blockchain technology and AI coming together and what that enables and the layers of friction that actually can remove is where we really start to, look at mass onboarding. Like just thinking about, I don't know whether you're using Banker at all. Uh,
Actually haven't I haven't used Banker. Of course I'm familiar with it. I know but it's more on X, and I am like not I try to stay off X. I've really committed to the to the Farcaster, Maxi identity.
Well, you can use Banker on Farcaster.
Oh, for sure, but I mean, like, I know it's more catered towards X. At least that's what Dish told me. Shout out to Dish from Clanker. But yeah, I mean, there's so many tools, functions, things like that are just so seamless, right? The
It's what
agents are crazy.
Oh, it's wild, and now seeing, Banker kind of being a part of the new Coinbase wallet app that is we're going to learn more about tomorrow, as of this recording. But I've just been using Banker in a way that feels very seamless. Like, hey, Banker, send my brother, $20 to go treat himself at the pub tonight on a Friday night, and it's like instant. There's no, you know, wallet, I don't have to tell him to go set up a wallet and, get a C phrase. It's like instantly. And, talk about use cases, like we can kind of deep dive on some of this as we get into this. But, the idea of being able to pay contractors immediately without worrying about escrow or, Fiverr holding funds or PayPal charging fees, like it just opens up so much possibility.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the more exciting things about the space, and what I started to gravitate towards were RWAs and just being able to tokenize a lot of things that are a bit antiquated. My mom. So I'm actually in my parents' home right now. I'm
Nice.
I'm from I'm from DC, so I flew up today. It was like I was telling you, it's a last minute trip, but a friend of mine has an event tonight for Chainlink, and they're one of the thought leaders in RWAs. So I was like, I'm absolutely, and I'll make my way up there. I want to see what's going on with Chainlink. But um, my mom was asking me because she picked me up like the sweetheart that she is, and she's just like, so what is it that's going on? Like, what are we talking about with like what's Chainlink? And I was just like, think about what a stock is, right? And as a stock, you own equity in a company. It stacks up. You have pieces of actual tangible paper. And when you're done with it and you want to like get rid of your investment, that paper is then exchanged into another place. That's why it's called an exchange. It's antiquated. It's old. What blockchain does is able to, keep it on a ledger for everyone to see in real time. And, went down the whole rabbit hole with her. And then she's just kind of like, all right, whatever.
I've started to kind of like collect like some examples to keep in my back pocket for normies of how to explain some of this stuff. And one of them that, I was actually with my father-in-law, and he's a former judge. He's an attorney, and he was asking me about an interview that I'd done with the founder of Sandbox. And so I'm trying to explain to this very intellectual 85-year-old man why I would pay $10,000 for a piece of digital land next door to where Snoop Dogg has his digital land. And trying to explain that to somebody who's not digitally native is a wild experience. And the way that I've kind of landed on how to, best articulate this is like, think back to the evolution of how we collect and engage with music, right? We would initially, go watch live music, see it in person. Then it was records, then it was CDs, then it was tapes, then it was CDs. We couldn't have conceived that record stores would completely disappear. We wouldn't be able to go in, buy our CD and leave. And instead, we would have this digital representation of a song on our phones. That was so novel to us.
Picking up where we left off. So I'm happy you're bringing up all of the old methods of getting music, but mini clips. Do you remember that fad or no? Oh my gosh. Well, it was like revolutionary when I was in grade school, but there were they were called hit clips. They were called hit clips. And so it would be like this little floppy disk almost, and you would put it into a music player, and it'd have one headphone, and it would play you 5 seconds or like 10 seconds of whatever song. And it was like Britney Spears, Backstreet Boys, like Ludacris, net like it was so fun. But anyway, that to go from that and then to have like digital possession of that song, and you could play it as many times as you want. You didn't have to skip, or like even with cassette tapes, knowing like where to put the anyway. Yeah, you couldn't fathom it. And then I think today, what's really interesting is I don't think people can break out of the matrix in understanding what fiat currency is, especially when it is backed by the US government, right? Like, or backed by whatever, country. But, for us to have the US dollar today be, the centerpiece of everything for all global economy, like everyone's reliant on that dollar. And to even think like, especially for someone that's a Western or someone that's from the United States, to even fathom like, well, simple economics, if you print too much of it, there's this thing called inflation, and too much of it will destroy your dollar, you know? And then here comes Bitcoin, where it's P2P, it's transactional, just like it holds value just like gold would, but you're able to interact and transact in real time, and it's monitored. It's you're able to see the value and the weight and the movement of it. And that's why it's special, is because there's a finite amount, like all the things that you and I both know, right? But to go on and explain that to, relatives, friends that are kind of on the outside, um, it's really difficult to comprehend until it actually happens. Just like, here's an even easier way of thinking about it. It's like when Apple stock was trading at $5, or when Google was trading at whatever when it IPO'd, like people are like, what is this? I don't know. You're dealing with the same thing. It's just a lot of people that just aren't paying attention, and then eventually they're going to. But yeah.
Pretty timely that we're talking about this because we just made in our household, we made a radical decision today, and that was to actually cash out my partner's retirement and move it into an IRA and actually buy IBTC. I think it's IBBTC, IBBTC,
Is that the spot Bitcoin ETF?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think, and it's interesting because we've been thinking about it for a while, and I think the biggest fear, which is I think the fear that we will have for most people, is that idea of like self custody, and how I don't feel comfortable with a large sum of money in a wallet that I
Mm.
control. I just don't. Right? Knock on wood, I've never been hacked in the 6 years that I've been in and around this. Please don't hack me in and around this ecosystem, but sophisticated scams now. You can take, I know people that have taken all the safety,
And
protocols
still get.
and still get hacked, and it's ruined their lives. And so with a large sum of money like this, we sought some counsel, and it was suggested that that would be the best way to do it.
You know what's so funny, Rachel, and I'm really appreciative of you sharing this and bringing this to perspective, because like from my end, I'm all about like what brought me to Web3 was truly like, yeah, like the RWA component is definitely important to me. But then additionally, um, self sovereignty, cutting out the middleman, not wanting institutions to meddle or have as much control over my assets. That's what I really was drawn to. So for me, I'm like, all of my Bitcoin's in cold storage. No one will know where that cold wallet is. Like, I'm not going to tell anybody. It's locked in a safe somewhere. But like, you know, I think what's really important, is to hear the other side of the argument for someone like yourself who may be like, look, like, I get it. If you're willing to take those steps and you're willing to, like, if you really are, people would call me like borderline schizo or paranoid. Like, I get it.
Don't get me wrong, I have stuff in wallets,
Of
but
course, but
but
for something that substantial,
yeah.
like if it's your retirement that you've worked your entire life for, to then put on a call. I mean, if you see what's happening in, more recently, I think it was in Paris. Did you see
People getting
the
kidnapped and their fingers chopped off, and
fingers are getting chopped off
yeah,
for and that's just because they know they have it. They don't know where it is. They don't know that, they're not even asking for a seed phrase. They're just like, we know you have it because
right.
it's all on the public ledger. So
And
it's
we
kind of
couldn't
like,
do that. You couldn't be in a situation where you could be held as hostage and have your funds released through, a stock exchange. Like
exactly.
you would have that layer of protection. So I'm the same way. I came here for all those same reasons, and I will continue to advocate and participate in all of those things. But it's nice to know there's also this choice when it comes to something that is a little bit more precious, shall we say, in terms of needing those additional layers of protection, at least for now. I mean, there may be a better solution coming that's more aligned with kind of this, decentralized kind of ecosystem we've grown to know and love.
That's right. And forgive the ignorance here because, like, at first, when you were first talking about the ETF and saying, trying to, the ticker for it, I was like, oh man, like, but then for you to bring even more clarity to that, that's the first time I've really heard the counterpoint of like, we're not talking about, a couple bucks. This is our entire life that we've worked for that we're going to put. I don't trust myself with it. I need someone. And I think people need to be reminded of it. Like, I don't
And
trust myself either with a lot of things, right? Think about the first time you ever had a cold storage wallet and you were trying to type in the password on Trezor or Ledger or whatever, and then the assets didn't pop up for 15 minutes. You're sweating bullets. You're like, oh my gosh, like you don't want that paranoia. You want the comfort of putting the liability on an institution. There's some cases like that it makes sense. So I really appreciate the clarity on that.
absolutely. And it's funny because I actually passed the information on to a friend today as well who was interested in doing something similar. And I said, "You're gonna laugh when I tell you who actually gave me this advice, like who I sought counsel from." And I told her, and it's a very well known account on Twitter who is not doxxed, um, who happens to be one of the smartest, savviest people behind the scenes. So it's just that it would be an interesting thing to be like, this is who I sought financial advice from.
Right.
Because their kind of public persona is very like degen and yeah, not what you.
But are they very much like self custody, not your keys, not your wallet? Or do they fall into that category a bit?
Maybe, yeah, a little bit.
See, and that's fun. So even more so, like furthering the point, even like they are willing to say behind closed doors, hey, look, like you might want to do that. So yeah, it makes sense. But yeah, so I wanted to, we've kind of just gone all over the place right off the bat. I love it, but I want to make sure we get time, especially for my audience, if they aren't already familiar with you, what you've been working on, how you got to the space, all of that. And even for me, I would love to hear it from you as well, just like your story.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot, but I guess the most salient way to say it is I'm a non-technical founder, strategist. I consider myself a storyteller. I've spent the last decade helping creators, nonprofits, startups to tell better stories, and also just building audiences and around kind of the meaningful ideas that are also exploring the intersection of emerging technology. I'm the founder of the Good News Studio, which is a media and advisory company focused again at the intersection of emerging tech, culture, community, and been doing that for about 4 years now. Prior to which, I had a startup, a company called Conception Arts that I founded with my wife back in 2011. It's going way back now. And we showcased over 8,000 artists in 14 cities around the US. We had a nice little business right up until COVID because we were primarily an events business. So that was an interesting turn of events when you have one revenue stream and your entire business is built on events, and then the world shuts down. You can't prepare
That's
for that.
right.
So kind of it was that business that actually led me into Web3. I had we had a community of about 8,000 artists that we worked with. We built a digital product suite. We had a podcast that was a top 100 podcast in the arts section. It was actually number one in the arts section for several months. Over 110,000 downloads per episode. Did really well with that. And then um, just heard these rumblings from some of our creators that were like, there's these things called NFTs, and I'm selling them. And there was one artist that was just like, yeah, I'm a teacher, and I just made my entire year's salary in a week selling these NFTs. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, and at the time, had a podcast, so I invited him on the show, and it was right about. I don't know how long you've been in the space, Jeff. Have you been here a while?
I've been here a bit. But please, because I can talk
Okay.
about myself. It's fine. Yeah.
So, I guess it was 2000, it was 2021 actually, because it was right after it was during the pandemic, during lockdown. And, I was like a lot of people going into clubhouse rooms and just for something to do, right? And just really fascinated by, first of all, the kind of folks that were in those rooms. It wasn't just artists and creators, it was a lot of C-suite executives that were like, hey, we've got our ear to the ground here. What is happening? It's actually where I met Keith Grossman, who was the president of Time Magazine at the time and is now, of course, president of MoonPay. So there was just this like energy that was happening, during that time. And I ended up connecting with this guy. His name, I think he still goes by this. His name is Burnt Banksy. And if you remember, he actually bought a Banksy from a Chelsea gallery. So he went in, purchased the physical piece for, I think it was around about $110,000. And he took that piece to a Brooklyn park and he set fire to it and he burnt it. And prior to setting fire to it, he took a picture of it and he uploaded it onto Ethereum as a digital asset. And
I did
so,
not know this story. I mean, it
really?
rings a bell. It rings a bell, but I didn't know it to this degree. I knew that there was the Banksy that was at Sotheby's and then it shred on the, but I didn't know this. I don't
But that
think
was
I'm
actually,
familiar with this one.
yeah, that was actually Banksy that did that. This was not. This was a guy, going by the name Burnt Banksy, sets fire to this, very controversially sets fire to piece of work from
That's
Banky.
six figures. Yeah, yeah.
Craziness. So I'm like, what is going on? So I end up getting in touch with this guy, interview him, and we have a few exchanges. And he said, "Hey, I'm doing this." He knew I was from an art background. Obviously, he said, "I'm meeting with a New Yorker magazine and doing an interview. Do you want to come and like kind of shadow me and that you can learn a little bit more about the
How
why,
cool.
like why I set fire to this?" So I go, I spend the day with him, and again, this is super early. This is like NFTs are just starting to kind of have that rise. It may have
Is
actually been
this around? This is
2020.
2021, right? Yeah.
I
Okay.
think maybe even 2020, like
Wow.
towards the back end of the year. And so we spend the day, we actually go visit that gallery where he bought this, this piece, and they were not happy campers that he was, with what he had done. And it was very controversial to just destroy art, right, without the artist's consent. And so during this experience, I said to him, I'm not getting it. I'm not understanding the like how you destroyed this, but yet you're telling me you didn't destroy it. You've actually preserved it and increased its value by bringing it onto the blockchain. I said, I don't get it. Like how, we've gone to a couple of other galleries and I'd seen these like digital displays. I'm like, look, I've been around fine art for a decade. I just can't see this being a thing that people are going to want these screens in their homes. Like they're give you a headache. They're like, he said, no, you're thinking about it all wrong. He said, my generation, Gen Z and younger, they don't go to each other's houses. He's like, we don't do what your generation and older did. Like, we don't have like dinner parties and go to each other's homes for drinks. He's like, we meet in digital spaces. And it was that moment that I was like, oh my gosh, my head is about to fall off. And that has really been what this learning experience has just compounded again and again is like, the future is built around digital spaces. Like the kids of Gen X, Gen Z, no, Gen Z and younger, they are spending more in digital spaces than they are in high street toy stores. They're asking for Robux. They're asking for digital currency. Like this is the future and I need to know everything about this. And so that was kind of my down the rabbit
Segue in.
hole. Yeah,
That'll do it. I mean, my
it's pretty
God.
wild.
Especially, well, it's so cool that you were able. I think you probably had one of the most. There's two things I think currently, and not to be so bold, but I think it's either art or finance that lead you in to Web3 very fast. And for you to have that background of years of, being in the fine art space, but then also like a journalist background too, to like be investigative, to ask questions, to be curious and be like, what is going on? Like, why did you just burn that? And then it's also interesting because I think a lot of people, even myself, like I'm a millennial and I'm considered a dinosaur in the space, and And I think for us, it's like people are afraid, or not even afraid, maybe lazy, maybe a culmination, but I think people are not willing to ask questions or at least understand. Even if you don't agree, like at least understand what they're doing it for. Because for me, it's like I love being social. I love being in a room with someone. I think Zoom is tough. Like if we had the ability to do this live and in person, I think it would be a much better experience. But again, that's my take. But maybe someone that's Gen Z or younger, they're like, I don't want to be in the room with you. I like give me my space, and also like don't ever come over for dinner. That's weird. So I don't get it, but I think look, like there's things for me where I'm super bullish on the digital world and where it's heading, and I know that's kind of the trend. That's why I'm here. But there's some things that I don't know are going to work, and maybe I'm like you keep alluding to, like you alluded to earlier, the uh like the real estate in the metaverse. Like right now it doesn't work, but who's to say 20-30 years from now, when VR is significant exponentially better, AI is exponentially better, where we truly are living in a Ready Player One world,
Mhm.
right? So
Or
I
even just
agree with you.
hybrid. Like I think we're gonna see like we're already seeing pretty wild things in terms of like having kind of like a split hybrid experience, right? Like you are obviously buying fashion and going out on the high street, but there's also huge amount of people now that are looking to digital fashion to clothe not avatars but their personhood to express themselves on social media without actually owning those clothes. Like that's a thing that's happening. You look at Psyche, which is a digital fashion company which owned led by Alice Delahunt, who I think they were funded by Alexis Ohanian's company. Like,
Okay.
that company is doing crazy things, and I remember s
Really?
yeah, I remember sitting at Christie's, 2 years ago, hearing her speak, and she said, she was a former Ralph Lauren exec, and she left this, big career and started a company based on digital fashion. Like, just hearing those 2 words together to me was like, "Come on, like, what are we doing here?" And then when you kinda pull the curtain back and you look and you realize that this is how this generation and younger is spending their time. They want to be able to express themselves in these unique ways. And now they can do it as, buying these digital assets and expressing themselves that way without ever leaving the house. It's wild. It's a
I
wild,
just It's so wild, but like I feel like I'm pretty in tune. Like I've got a pulse, but that it just doesn't like
you know,
it doesn't resonate. And
right.
but I get it. You see everyone spends all their time. The only thing, this is where like my cutoff was, and I think it was because of COVID that I was just forced to play video games. Like, oh, twist my arm, play video games, yeah, whatever. But playing Fortnite, seeing how much money all of my friends that are my age put into V-Bucks and like buying different skins and buying different emotes, like doing all, and I'm like, what the
Isn't that
fuck?
isn't
What
that
is
wild?
going on? It's
Right.
so crazy to me. And then to think like, so coming up, speaking of video games, Grand Theft Auto 6 is coming out in 2026. And I don't know if you've heard of any of this. It seems like you probably have better
I'm
insight than
not a
I do.
gamer, but
It,
I'm definitely fascinated and we'll talk. Yeah, I'm definitely fascinated with this conversation around
for
gaming.
sure, but the thing that's kind of been the buzz is, why is it taking so long?
Mm,
This game, if you've heard of anything about GTA 6, the last one was released, I believe, in 2015. And they've been working on this game for almost 11 years now. And it's the biggest budget, I believe, of any video game ever made. It's going to be the largest map. It's an open world game. And the rumor mill is that they're going to incorporate, excuse me, cryptocurrency. And so it's going to be like, I don't know who's powering it. I don't know if it's actually going to be on chain, but I know that there's going to be real markets that are within the video game. Because so think about it, like if my attention and my time is spent, people on average are playing like 8 hours at a time, right? It's not this like, oh, I'm just going to pop in and play Pong for 30 minutes or like go play like Frogger for 30. It's like, no, I'm in here and that's like a part of my life. And it's a social event. I mean, you join a party, especially during COVID. This is where I really got exposed to it, but it's like you can't go outside, you can't interact with anybody in person. So what do? They gave you a platform, they gave you an alternate, and people like one of my buddies, his best friends from high school, religiously every Sunday, they will play video games for 4 hours a day, and they don't even care how good or bad they are. It's just a way for them to like socialize, you know? So I think you're right. And that proves the point that like this generation that we're talking about, like Gen Z and younger, it really is, it's going to be a digital world.
Hmm. I'm in like so excited to hear where they're going to build this. I wonder if it would be on base, given all the hype, or I wonder if they'll just build their own chain.
You know, I don't know. I mean, I think that I think that there's a lot to unfold there.
Mhm.
I don't know if they're going to do a new. I don't know if they're going to do a chain. I don't know if they're going to partner with somebody. But
Look, I mean,
yeah,
look at I don't know whether you follow kind of every little minutia that's happening like I do.
it's hard. How hard is it? By the way, sidebar, to be someone that's like a podcaster or like an interviewer or a journalist, trying to stay up to like just trying to keep up with the news in Web3 specifically, it's impossible. It's
It's felt
impossible.
like this last month, particularly, which I think is a really bullish signal, has felt insane. And I'm like working with my team to like, how do we get AI to just do this for us so we don't have to be so hands on? But we also don't want to put out slop content. So just I think it's a very bullish moment, but it is very difficult to navigate for sure. I just think like look at what happened last week. So Snoop, right? Snoop Dogg hasn't done a whole lot in the space for a couple of years, and all of a sudden, I'm sure there was a lot of planning behind it, but does $20 million on digital assets via Telegram using TON, the blockchain. I
I
didn't
didn't
even know
know that.
Telegram had a blockchain. Like what?
Yeah.
Like,
So I knew that. I will admit I knew that, but it's actually struggled. And I think
yeah.
it's there were some restrictions on where it could operate, where wallets were able to be downloaded because as you know, everyone in web3 has Telegram. I mean, so I current my full time is I work at QuickNote. I'm on their GTM team
Mm,
and I don't email anymore. I haven't used
easy.
email like hardly at all because it's all spam. And then if I am doing any interaction with a client, if I am like trying to win new business, it's all on Telegram. So I knew that they had a token, I knew they had a chain, but then I think a lot of the crypto industry got a little squeamish when there was some I don't know if it was Interpol or if it was just the
Mhm.
CIA, but
You
basically
found it,
like
right?
they had to yeah exactly they had to like open up the back end for intelligence, and I think people were like, all right, cool, so this is not decentralized, this is not private, like I'm gone.
Yep.
Which is tough because you could make the argument that basically any blockchain is not truly decentralized. If you saw what Sui had happen the other day with Cetus protocol,
Mm-mm.
yeah, so basically someone hacked it. I think they found like some like, and I think it was for like $30 million, maybe more. No, maybe 300 million. But basically, all of the validators were like by the network, by the lab, like shut them all off, and like basically saw the last position that it was held at, cross-referenced that wallet, figured out who it was, and then were able to return all of the assets, which is great in theory. You're like, oh, great, everyone got their money back. But then it's like, well, wait a minute. Like, if they just have a kill switch, does that really make it a decentralized blockchain,
No,
right?
absolutely not. Wow.
Right.
I did
So
not.
yeah, yeah. So exactly, like it's impossible to keep up with every single
Exactly.
thing, but it's cool because at the same time, it's like, well, what's your flavor? Like, if you're more into the arts, then you can kind of like stay in that lane. But like to be a generalist in Web3 is basically impossible. Like, I mean, you can, but like you're always going to be a day late, to whatever the news is.
I think, one of the things that the reason that Good News Studio even exists is because I said I came in as somebody who had a great business, and then we were forecast for our best year ever in 2020. We took all our staff on a retreat in December 2019. Everything was like locked and loaded, and to have that just kind of fall apart essentially, and have to rebuild. So I came into the space very curious, but also like, I don't know how I'm supposed to show up here yet. Like, I don't know where to put my skill set. And I have a lot of experience in like you mentioned, like GTM, like, I built that business from nothing to seven figures and, multiple outlets around the US. So I know how to build a business. I know how to market. I know how to brand. So I'm like, all right, let me just kind of show up in some of these Twitter spaces and see where I can contribute. And I was just finding it like this is like a negativity FUD cesspit, and I don't wanna be here. And then there was these little glimmers of like, "All right, well, there's something really exciting happening here." But then there's this guy who's rugging everybody over here. All right, but then there's this, okay, this guy just stole $20 million, and I was like, "Here's the thing, right? We are gonna lose some brilliant people because they're gonna come here and they're gonna hear the FUD and they're gonna be like, 'Peace, I am out.'" And so I'd actually text my friend Maya Drazen, who's the chief brand officer for Time, and I said, "I'm thinking about starting a show called The Good News Show." I said, "Is this a bad idea?" I said, "Tell me." She goes, "No, I love it. Do it." I was like, "All right, fine." I said, "Do you want to partner on it? We can collaborate. We can do something with the community together." And she was like, "Sure. Well, let me see how it goes, and then let's assess." So we just started every Monday, 11 o'clock. I would just do a roundup of good news from the space, and some weeks it was hard. Some weeks there was not a lot of good news, right? It was it was rough out there for a minute. But we would like endeavor every week to like, surface stories from, whether it was blockchain, whether it was crypto, whether it was, people using AI tooling for good or
Right.
social impact, and it just kind of grew from there. And we're now in our third year of doing this, showing up bull market, bear market, whatever market every week. We've interviewed over 300 guests, everybody from Rafik Anadol to Keith Grossman to leaders, thought leaders, creators, innovators, protocols. And it's a journey. And you're a podcaster. Like, one of the best parts of this is like really getting to know the people behind a lot of this.
I think that's the most rewarding part about all of this is getting, not to pander at all, but just getting to know people like yourself and hear their story. There's so many similarities, so much to relate on, but then also like, what's the intention? Like, where did you come from? What motivated you? And I think like, Toady Hawk, right?
Of course.
Yeah. So Toady actually was the first time I really heard about you was through Toady. And so Toady, is someone similar to you, someone similar to me, like COVID hit. All right, well, I got to do something else because this is not, you know what I mean? And I think it exposed a lot of people and it brought a lot of good people um, to the space too. And I think that was really to your point. And I mean, how it couldn't have been better for you to also like really build a name on Farcaster as well, which is like the opposite of X, in my opinion. I've been on Farcaster now for like 3 months.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Wow.
And I know, I trust me, I know. And you see the like polar difference of, because you were talking about like I would hop in these spaces and what's a meme coin? All right, now I'm a part of this community. Why am I following this community? What like and then you're in the spaces and then it's just a bunch of bitching and moaning about like someone that rugged and oh like I guess it's like what is like this is the most unserious space ever. What have I like brought
I
myself
could
to?
I could tell you stories. How much time do we have?
Yeah, it's long form. We could go as long or as little as you'd like, but I mean, trust me, there's plenty of scars to back it too of like just being interested in the space. The first like real, so you asked the question earlier, like, how long have I been in it? Transparently, like, not that long. If you really boil it down, I think I really got in the trenches starting in 2023. That's where I like really started to understand the culture in a level that I didn't think. Right. So prior to that, 2016, I worked on the Hill, on Capitol Hill, and I worked for a congressman that founded. This is all like serendipitous, by the way. Founded the Blockchain and Cryptocurrency Caucus. So I was his legislative aide and was thrown all of like the policy legislation. How should we like move forward with this? How do we interact with it? He was a libertarian, so like very much hands off and like no regulation is good like policy, right? So or as little rather. But anyway, that was my first glance at it. So I like had a Coinbase account when it was only like Coinbase Litecoin, or excuse me, Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Ethereum.
XRP.
And yeah, and that's it. And yeah, you know what? The cat. If you remember, like in the early days, if you just did the like learn and get paid element, there would be like 5 questions and quiz, or 5 talking points and quiz you at the end, and they'd give you like a substantial amount. If you held that, you would have a big chunk of change in your. I didn't. I
I
sold
cry
like
over
five,
all
ten
the
bucks.
crypto I sold along the way.
Exactly.
I
And
have I have Bitcoin at 8,000, so I am very sad, very
yeah.
sad. But I went to
Yep.
Aruba, so you know.
All right. Well, you know, but so anyway, that was like my first experience with it, but I didn't have a way in.
Mm.
And then in 2020, end of 2020, 21, a buddy of mine and I tried to start what's now honestly like a combination of Icebreaker, if you've seen that,
Mm.
um,
Yep.
and then and then Farcaster. So like we were trying to just build for Gen Z like a gig economy forum that you would be able to get paid for putting out your resume or contributing to a forum, like telling us about like the brand or company you were working with, and then you would get paid on the native token that was created. And we raised money on it. It was a friends and family round. It just had to get sunset. Like we were not technical. So like we didn't know how to keep up with the back end. The people that were devs were, offshored, and we were not in person with them. So it was a lot of like stuff like that, lessons, right? Like learning points. But 2023 was when I started playing with Solana, and I was like, oh, this is fun. It's exciting. It's literally a casino. And the people on the other end, it just became PvP. And you know, I that was my first real taste of being in the trenches.
You were on the dark side of the trenches. You were in
That's right.
Solana.
I was shown the light when I got introduced to Farcaster. Honestly, like the way that they use protocols, the way that they launch tokens, like they're doing it in a way that is like what I've always been looking for. So it's really cool to see it here.
I kick myself a little bit about Farcaster because I had Prof Woda, and you should definitely chat with Prof Woda and Adrian. They host GM Farcaster.
GM Farcaster, of course. Yeah.
And so Prof was a regular. At one point, we did the Good News Show 5 days a week, which was a terrible idea. We went to weekly, of course, because it was just way too much to manage. And so Prof was a co-host with me on Tuesdays, and she kept saying to me, I went to this thing in Boston. It was the first ever Farcaster meetup, and it's really great, and you should take a look at it. And I was like, yeah, I'll take a look. And then, set up an account, but then didn't touch it for like 7 months, 8 months. And then finally came back, I think like the March of 2024. So it'd be last year, right after everybody had got this huge degen airdrop. And had I actually been active during that time, I would have got a lot of money. But I was around for the second degen airdrop, which at the time was, I think when I got it, it was $6,000. And then I watched it go up to $35,000 that weekend. Took a little bit of profit, not a lot, not nearly as much as I should. Maybe $2,000, something like that. And then
That's $2,000 you did not have in your pocket. You know what I mean?
This is all free magical internet money, and I am absolutely full of gratitude for every single dime of it. But it was just wild, and I obviously, look, we all are here for many different reasons, but the economics and the financial stuff is incredible if you play it the right way. So of course I was more excited about Farcaster all of a sudden. But then once I actually, I struggled a little bit to kind of find my feet, because I think it's a very different type of platform to X, to Instagram. And I built a following on Instagram with my former business. It's like you can't just shout into the void on Farcaster, right? And somebody had explained, it's kind of like LinkedIn meets Y Combinator. Like it's a social network, not a social media platform.
Totally.
And so, approach it in that way. Approach it like build connections, like get to know. Think of it as digital town square. I think Adrian calls it a scenus. And just really thinking about, okay, well, like who can I get to know, but what can I offer here? and just showing up in that way and trying to make those connects. And then I went to FarCon in Venice in 2024. It was maybe 200 people. It was awesome. Met a bunch of really cool folks there. And then, fast forward a year, just going to FarCon in New York. Were you there?
I was there. That was my I literally onboarded 2 weeks before FarCon,
Wow.
and then I went up. And I can tell you that in a bit. But anyway, I don't want to cut your
Well,
thought off.
just walking in and a year, almost a year apart, from Venice to New York, and seeing the explosive growth and the caliber of the people that are in that room. I mean, how can you not be bullish? Like, how can you not be bullish when you hear Dan Romero speak, or when you hear, that Coinbase is essentially taking Farcaster Rails to build out its application? Like, it's the future. It's amazing.
It is. No, I agree. So I would agree. There's so many like nice tidbits that you just shared. Um, just about like Farcaster being different. And I think people come in with the expectation of, well, it's just Twitter or it's just Instagram. Why am I with 10 followers? Like, and then they leave and they quit. And I know this has been a very, like, I've been a bit outspoken about this. I've gotten flack from it. And even talking to Ted about it, I think there's a lot of pressure on the Merkle team to deliver an algorithm that, once you're onboarded, you're immediately with a following. And I think that's a really difficult, tall task to offer somebody. And like, by the way, like shout out to Ted, bless her heart. She has the most thankless like task of making everyone happy, which is like, she's just trying to do the
But she has
impossible. So,
golden retriever energy, so she does that anyway. She's
yeah,
awesome.
no, truly. And so that's actually who kind of onboarded me. So one of my good friends, childhood friends, is pretty deep in the Web3 space, introduces me to Ted. And then I just conveniently, like, just being like ignorant, I just was like, oh, hey, like I had no idea Ted's like presence or following or anything on Farcaster. My friend Juan's literally like, hey, reach out to Ted. Ted will like, get you onto Farcaster. So I just like friended her and then just direct casted her and said, hey, by the way, like Venice Beach, because it's in her profile, whatever. I'm like, and she says like she loves this one restaurant. I'm like, this is like really weird, but like, do you know the little coffee shop called Little Lunch? And she's like, dude, what the fuck? Like, how do you do like, no, that. And then it turns out we were neighbors and we didn't even know it in Venice Beach for like a couple years. And so
Gosh.
she shouted me out and immediately people started, following me, whatever. But I made an intention of like every single person that was following, which is psychotic, right? I'm not, but like every single person that followed me, one, I like made sure to like look at their profile. And if there was some sort of synergy there, like in whatever capacity, just, hey, like DCing them, hey, thanks for the follow. Like, I see you do this. Like, I'm sure we can find a way to connect on something
That's
like later.
awesome.
And then it's like immediately that engagement is not like just a facade of like, oh, I'm following you, you follow me, like I guess we're connected now, whatever, and like piss off. It's like, no, you have to be intentional. And I
Hmm.
got a lot of shit from coming in. And again, I've only been here for 3 months, but it's like no one put a gun to my head and said like make a podcast. No one put a gun to my head and said like you have to tweet or like do any of this stuff. Like I just saw the opportunity to connect with like you were saying, how can you not be bullish? Like I like the entrepreneurial side of things, but I'm not technical. So like if I have the ability to build, if you can't build an app, build a media platform. Like just start talking to people, right? And you'll see the opportunities unfold. But sorry for this long-windedness. I just get really passionate about Farcaster and also defensive of it. Like I defend it because I think like people look at it as this immediate like satisfaction of, oh, I have to have following or I'm out. It's this like, but in reality, you gotta put the work in. Like you gotta talk to people, don't see that behind the scenes. So I love Farcaster. I'm super bullish on it, but I also think like the team's really hard on themselves. There's only like 14 to
Mm.
15 of them tops. And I think they got to give themselves a little bit of credit. Like they've done an amazing job of putting together a
I mean,
platform for people like us to connect.
they have a $500 million valuation, right? Like, That's
Oh,
pressure.
I think it's bigger than that now.
Over $5 billion valuation. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's, I mean,
Exactly. It's like they're
that's
doing
a lot of
well.
pressure. That's a lot of pressure.
A
Yeah.
ton. And that's such a good point. Is the other day, like, they're talking about getting rid of channels. Does Good News have do you have a channel as well?
We do, but I'll be honest with you, like I I don't really see, and this is all a me problem, right? I haven't really spent the time to cultivate community on that channel, and it's purely down to just like an energy issue. Like I don't have enough hours in the day to do it. Like we're currently, and we can talk a little bit more about on-chain content, but like the current distribution that I have to do for a piece of content is currently 7 platforms, right?
Oh,
It's insane. It's
it's
insane.
insufferable. Yeah.
And, I do that whether we get a lot of engagement or not. I will continue to do that because I'm building a library of content that can be,
So what are your
free.
platforms that you put it on? I'm sorry to
So
cut you
we
off.
are going, so obviously the long form video is going on YouTube. Then we're trying to natively put it on X because YouTube X doesn't like YouTube. So you'll get blacklisted for posting links. Then we are putting a written piece out on Paragraph, and potentially on Medium if I feel like doing it on Medium as well. Then we are going short form YouTube.
Who's
Short form.
doing all of the editing, Rachel?
Well, I have an editor. That helps.
Okay. That
But
definitely
I keep
helps.
it very simple. I take the raw cut video. He just front and backs the episode for me, and then I just ask for 3 short form clips. That's it. That's the easiest way for me, and it's not perfect. So what else are we doing? We do YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Zora.
Okay. I tried. I couldn't
Really?
figure it out. Yeah. If you could sell me on it, like
Yeah, I mean,
we could talk offline, but like I'm open to it. I
yeah,
just,
I'm just in like I'm trying to use on-chain tools as much as possible because I want to bring what I would like to do is not have to put any of this out on non-on-chain
totally.
platforms. I would love my stack to be Paragraph for the written pieces, Zora for short form content, and Pods for the podcast. That's it.
So, are you familiar with Pine Tree?
I'm not familiar with Pine.
So Android 16 and Geo have created essentially the on-chain YouTube. I had them on the podcast a couple weeks ago. I had Geo on, and they're brilliant. And so basically, they don't believe in the fact that YouTube has possession of your content. That's your content, right? And they can blacklist you, they can ban you. So Pine Tree is completely open. And I think they're working, it's still working some kinks out. But I think, like, shout out to Pods. I love Pods as well. But I think there's potential partnership in there as well, where it's like you onboard it onto Pine Tree, and then Pods is like the distribution to mint the NFT. So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff that's out there for us.
And I think we're going to see a really interesting update this week. I mean, I think we know that Paragraph is going to coins, right? From NFTs to coins. So there's going to be content coins around that. From the conversations I had at FarCon, I get the sense that any content you deploy within the Coinbase wallet app, you can probably choose right in the app whether you
Whether
want
to
to
NFT
coin
it
it.
or
Yeah. That's what I think we'll see.
so do you like okay, I have a great question for you, because you use Pods, right? I see you on Pods. I know you're on Pods, but uh the minting component I personally love. Like whenever I see like somebody minting and then I like go and click in the wallet and I see who it is, I love it because that's just sheer support. Who knows if there's actual value? I would highly doubt that there's, unless like I do inevitably launch a token for Startup Radar and then do an airdrop based on,
Right.
I've put thought into that as well. But I mean, like, it's for the love of the like channel and the love of the podcast. Like they're just supporting. And I don't know, like
It's tough.
with tokens, it's interesting because it's like when that thing goes up in value and then you dump it, then you're dumping on, you know what I mean? So
Well, you
I'm
can't
indifferent.
dump. That's and we've been talking about this a lot with Toady. Like you cannot dump on your own community, right? Like you just cannot do it. But you can, do giveaways and incentives to
I meant the users. So let's say a user
free
found
users.
Startup Radar and bought a bunch of my tokens before everyone else, and then it crushes and it gets a lot of volume, and all of a sudden they're just like, yeah, I'm out. Like it could ruin what you
Yep,
built.
totally. You know, it, I've been having this conversation with Tony about the content because for my podcast, for the first 11 episodes, we have dropped in collaboration with Betterment.
Awesome. How great of an experience
Oh,
is that?
so
Isn't
fun.
it?
It's
Yeah.
so fun. I mean, 1,000 episodes, between 800 and 1,000 mints per episode over the last 10 weeks or 11 weeks. Amazing, right? Amazing. And also shout out to Apex from Vale, who essentially sponsored that whole 11 weeks for us. And I also want to give an extra shout out to him because he, as a builder, he didn't have to do that, but he recognizes the value that we as content creators in this ecosystem have, because there needs to be this flywheel around protocols, around content, around what's being built. We need people talking about it, right? Like, you need users to be excited. You need users to understand it in a way that's palatable and, easy for them to digest. So just big respect for him for kind of seeing that and supporting that. And totally lost my trail of thought, but that's all right.
No, you got me thinking, because sometimes I sit back and I'm like, yeah, I've only done, I think this is like the 17th or 18th episode that I've done, which is like, for 3 months, it's pretty quick. But I think also you kind of sit back and you're like, are you just shouting into the void? Like, are you really getting attention? Are you? And the answer is yes. And I'm not saying that for like self praise or for us to like pat each other on the back, but it's also like, if you think that you have something that is worth sharing, like, I'm not a podcaster. My wife literally demanded, she was like, you're on the phone all day. You call these
Stop
founders
yapping.
for no, like, there's nothing, you're not doing it for anything. You just want to talk and learn. Like, go put it on a podcast. And so here you go. I mean, and yeah, you get to meet people like yourself and you just learn. You like, that's the best part about this, is like, you just get to learn and have fun conversations.
One of the things that I think we haven't cracked yet, and I still think that there is a solution there, and that is we can gamify and get people to collect content, right? I think one of the first problems that we have with collecting content or collecting a podcast is we're asking the user to do a new experience that is not native, right? We don't collect podcasts. Like, we don't go and buy a podcast. So that's kind of like problem one. I think the gamification layer of what, Pods is doing, what I forget the company that was it, Blueprint did something else where there was like a token incentive for minting. The only problem we have with that right now is those people are probably not listening to our content, right? They're probably
Yeah.
not consuming it. They're in it for the quick spin. And so, great. I'm in it for the quick spin myself when I play Betterment too. When we can find a way to, like, essentially, track how much of the content is being consumed. I think my wife is an attorney and she has to do these continuing legal education classes often. And there's like they're like
Are you still there? Like,
yeah,
are you still?
exactly. And some of them are like boring as hell, but it's like she has to sit there and wait for the secret word, right?
Yeah.
So that she can actually,
No,
say
there you go. There's the
right. So
answer right there.
that's kind of where I was thinking. I was like, well, we could do this, but then that's kind of a bit of a headache with the content because you've got to, but it's doable, right? It's definitely doable. So are we creating net new fans that way? I don't know, but it is at the very least getting them into your ecosystem. And like you said, there's a wallet, you can airdrop to the wallet. So I think there's a lot of exciting things happening with on-chain content that could be layered upon with these different, gamification protocols, rewards, incentives, etc. But
I
it's
mean,
so
it,
novel.
it is. And I just think, like, think about the way that we should be thinking about the economics of it is like, where are people spending their time?
Hmm.
Right? If you are watching a podcast, if you're watching a TV show, a sports, like, that is monetizable. In the reverse, though, like, the end user should be able to get paid for the
Yep.
time that they are spending
Hell
on a
yeah.
certain thing. Yeah, okay, like, they may have to suffer through an advertisement. They may need to, like, but okay, at the exchange of content that you're already watching and advertisements that you're already consuming, but then instead of not getting paid, you now get paid. I think that's worth it.
I think so. I think we should brainstorm something where the payment mechanism doesn't deploy until that secret word is revealed, and it's revealed post 20-minute mark at some point, so you have to be, like, consuming.
And then at that point, hopefully your content's good enough
That
where
you've
it's like, all
kept
right, now I want to
thinking.
stay.
And that's the thing, right? There's a lot of not so great content out there, and, not every single episode that I record is a big hitter, right? It's just it's nice to now have options to be able to be rewarded for that, and I'm excited to see how that scales for sure.
Absolutely. No, I mean, all of this is, it's so cool because, yes, you're a founder, but you're also doing, like, I'm doing something very similar to you where, you know, um, we're just kind of flipping stones and staying in the traffic, trying to like see what's going to come of this. We know we're in the right place. I'm very confident in that, but how it transpires and how it evolves, I have no freaking idea, but it's very exciting.
Yeah, and one of the best moves I've made in this space was really a friendship that I developed here, who's become a really close friend, but also now my co-collaborator, my co-founder, and he's one of the most brilliant technologists that I've ever met. And I've worked with, developers along the way because, the art business that I had, we actually built out a platform that had a crowdfunding element to it so that exhibitors could essentially crowdfund their oh, losing my words today, like their participation in events. So if there was a vendor fee for an event, instead of being able to pay out of pocket, they could actually launch this initiative and
For
essentially,
the attendees to
yeah,
contribute.
which was
How cool.
wonderful. So, I've had a lot of experience with devs over the years, but um, Brock is my technical co-founder. He's just brilliant.
Is he on Farcaster?
Yes, absolutely. He's Breadcat on Farcaster. And we are both very neurospicy, both ADHD, have a million ideas. So that's probably one of the biggest challenges is like knowing where to like put the attention. But we've been essentially incubating a few things for the last 12 months, one of which we launched during the base hackathon for On-Chain Summer last year. And it actually won in the payments track, which was very cool. Everything I've ever built has come as a result of personal frustration or personal experiences of like, why doesn't this thing work this way or why does this not exist? Like, just to kind of go back to the previous business, like Conception Arts was, like I shared with you, like it was a great business. We had over 8,000 artists that exhibited with us. We did multiple seven figures. We were active in 14 cities. We did all this great stuff. But in essence, the reason that business even existed was because I'm an artist and I was like, hey, I'm getting rejected from galleries. I don't have a trust fund. Like, where do I show this work that I'm creating as like a mid-20s something living in Greenwich Village? And there was like nothing, right? There was no opportunities. It was super scrappy. And so we were like, okay, well, let's start throwing these art events in the basement in Tribeca. And that's how it started, right? It's literally started from that and it blossomed into something beautiful that helped a lot of people. And so what happened with Help, which is the name of the business that we were one in the payments track for, was I did a lot of advisory for nonprofits. For some reason that I've either gravitated towards art or social good causes, and so I'm like, there's a lot happening in crypto giving that's really exciting, but there's a really big problem, and nobody's pointing it out, and that is that of all the millions, tens of millions of dollars that are being donated in crypto right now, like 80% of those are going to the top 100 nonprofits in the US. And why is that? Because those causes are already well, like, stocked with their staffing departments. They are well resourced. They have the ability to go out and learn how to navigate and, use this technology. And everybody else below that kind of threshold, oh well.
No one had an access, no one had an idea of how to set up a wallet, how they could be tax compliant. And those are the things that would scare them away. Yeah, totally.
So we kind of got our heads together and we said, okay, how do we solve this? For for anybody else, not even just nonprofits, but anybody who has something they want to crowdfund, kind of maybe they want to kickstart something. And so we created on base something called Send Help, but you can still visit it. It's still active. It's sendhelp.xyz. That's help, HALP. We had the amazing Brian Morris do all the branding for it, and it's awesome, really cool UI UX. And then we ended up doing like an accelerator during On-Chain Summer as well. So for 2 weeks, we picked 20 causes and essentially, invited them for Zoom meetings, took them through kind of the why of blockchain, understanding wallet safety, how to set up a fundraising page, and built the product.
Wow. I mean, I don't. It's so cool to hear the stories of people building, especially non-technical people, to just find a way and use their pain points as a way to like create a solution. That's the name of it, right? Like you got a problem, provide a solution. There's your business, right? But
I
yeah,
mean,
no. Go ahead.
sorry. Well, I was just going to also say, like, sometimes as a non-technical founder, you can feel a little bit like kind of the crazy ideas guy, like a chronic ideas guy, right? It's like, all right, well, what do I have as value as a non-technical founder other than, hey, Brock, we should build this, right? I'm like,
That's how
look
I feel
what
all the
we
time.
did, right? It's like, no, he's the brilliant mind. He's the guy who is building out smart contracts. He's like infrastructure built every little piece of this. I have no claim to that. But what I think I bring as a non-technical founder, and maybe you can relate to this, is obviously conceiving of the ideas, identifying the problem, building go-to-market strategy, assembling teams, but also there is so much value on social capital. Like we don't talk about that enough as an attribute for a founder, right? I like have spent a decade plus building deep relationships in this space, and I was able to and I don't use my asks lightly. I don't go to my network with an ask unless I really feel like it delivers for them and for whatever it is I'm building. So during that experience when we were building Help, I was able to reach out to a friend who's the chief impact officer for the Chopra Foundation, and my friend who's head of Web3 for MasterCard, and say, hey, would you, be willing to be, a part of this element that we're doing for this? And they were like, absolutely, yes. So, being able to build those relationships and leverage them in a thoughtful and respectful way is, I think.
Absolutely. And I appreciate also you pointing out the value that you bring as a non-technical founder, right? Like those are things that typically, not to generalize, but typically people that are the devs, the computer engineers tend to be more introverted. They don't
Mhm.
want to go out and do that. They just want to build. And I admire that because that's what I'm not. You know what I mean? So like so being able to find someone and work in tandem and have an understanding of like your dependency on one another to fulfill whatever the task is really cool. I mean, it's a team effort. You don't build something. The people that can completely build something on their own are either just an incredible outlier or full of shit. So like, yeah,
And
it
can you really
definitely.
be good at all things? I don't know. I don't think I've met anybody that like I don't think I've met anybody that is,
I haven't either,
unicorn.
but I'm also skeptic because I think I just read an article that like a 23-year-old just created $1 billion
Right.
company by
Yep.
himself. So like
Yeah.
maybe we're wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know,
Well, now with
but
AI, we're more than one person, right? That's the scary
great
part.
point. That's the scary thought,
It,
and that
it's which
it
is a funny
troubles me.
it's a funny segue because vibe coding is actually what got me to my latest venture. So,
What's
trying to.
what's your latest? I thought good news. So what's the latest? What's the latest?
No, we're actually, well, as we are currently incubating another business that is about to launch. We did enter it into base batches. Unfortunately, we did not get picked for the final, but we may continue and push it forward for on-chain summer. But essentially, I was at Far was I at FarCon? Yes, I was at FarCon, and I had gone to the On-Chain Creators Summit, which is like a side event the day prior. And there was a lot of conversation about vibe coding, and I'm like, I tried it. Have you tried it?
Of yes, it's
Okay,
so hard.
it's so hard. It's like, oh my
Get
god,
out of here.
I'm like,
It's
it's
so
gonna be
hard.
great. Because I remember like probably 2019, 2018. I was spending so much money on a developer. Like we'd even gone into debt to pay our developer, and I'm like, this is insane. And I remember discovering how to build landing pages, paywall gated course software, and like doing six figures like in within 6 months of learning that skill. And I was like, hey, I can do this. I can just, I don't need a dev. This is great. I got this. So then vibe coding, I'm like, oh, I can just be like, I don't have to go to Brock with every single idea. I can just be like, hey, I'm just going to spin this up. And then, of course, you sit down and you try it and you
Yeah.
go, oh,
It's just
okay.
agonizing because you're
It's
sitting there
painful.
and you see all of this progress. You're like in your terminal, you have your code. It's you pushed it, it's updated, it's good, it's
And now
like, and
what?
then you're seeing, yeah, and now what? And then you're just like, oh my god, I'm like this close. So there's shout out to Jordan Ruminations on Farcaster. Like he's been helping me build something, and I'll be like one step forward, 17 steps back, and then he'll come in and he actually knows how to, he's a back end developer, so he'll walk me through it, and I'm like, oh, I'm getting it. Oh, and I do npm there, and then I press it, and then he's like, all right, I gotta go to bed, dude. I'll talk to you later.
It's
I'll be on.
embarrassing.
I'll be on for 5 more seconds. Everything collapses. I'm just like chucking a laptop across the room. Like I can't do this. So I'm actually in the process of looking for a full stack dev right now. So that's been. So if you know anybody,
Yeah.
um,
Tell me what you're looking for offline, and then we can, if Brock's free, I'll let you know.
oh man, that
Good
would
luck.
be epic. I would love that. And it's a really easy lift. The loop's already like created. All of the like groundwork is there of just the idea and like what it would be. It's total. Anyway, I'm not gonna bore whoever's listening to this right now. They don't want to hear that right now. But yeah. No. That actually just reminds me, Rachel. You didn't have a deadline, did you?
No, I'm actually good. So
Okay.
keep yapping if you're okay.
All right. Yeah. No, I'm good. I do like keeping them at around. I think we're well beyond an hour and a half, though, aren't we?
We're at an hour, I think.
Oh, it's saying an hour here, but we have the 30
Right?
minutes of recording
Oh my gosh,
beforehand.
that's right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well,
So
let's talk about this. Maybe we can talk about Wellfi a little, and then
absolutely, yeah. Whatever you want to cover, for sure.
so the vibe coding thing was kind of what led us into this next project, because one of the things that again solve a problem, right, that exists for you personally. So I've been sober for 12 years. I've been in recovery, and best thing I ever did. And one of the things that really helped me stay sober in the beginning was there was a bunch of different applications where you could, like, one was like you've been sober 7 days, congratulations, right? Like a little tracker. And then there was another one where you could like find a meeting, or there was this one where you could, do a meditation. And they were all just kind of like spread out, right? There was no like central hub where you could, actually do these kind of wellness practices essentially. And so I was like, oh, maybe I could like vibe code a sobriety app. Like that's something that I would need. It's, could be helpful to other people. And started to, kind of vibe code it. And then I was chatting with a dev at the conference, and he was like, the beauty of vibe coding really is for us devs, because you can ideate what it is that you envision. You can actually really bring it to life, and then you can bring it to us. So you're actually saving like, an hour or 2 hours of back and forth with a developer ideating. Like, so that's actually great for devs.
Yeah,
And so, I thought about it a little more, and I said, there's something here. I think it needs to be more broad than just, for the sobriety community. I think this is a wellness play. And so, Brock and I started to talk about it, and then, thinking about like, okay, well, how do you incentivize behavior? Like, how do you use blockchain rails, use all of the kind of layering in gamification elements that we've seen, like Toady use with Betterment. Like, how do you tap into that with the wellness community? And so essentially what we're building, or what we are very close to launch on, is a wellness app that is built on crypto rails that helps people to stick to their goals through financial accountability. So basically you commit to a habit, whether that's meditation, whether it's journal, whether it's, whatever it is, it could be learning a new language. It can be any of those things. And you are essentially staking,
Yes. That
betting.
is so cool.
Yeah, you're betting on yourself,
So
basically.
here's the thing. How do you prevent Cybele and game of or farming you? And let's just say like I stake $5 and say, hey, I'm not going to drink this week. How do I get? How do I like? Because I could easily just be like, all right, like
Totally, right, and that's why
okay,
we are like, we're launching with, like, a very primitive, kind of, experience for this. Initially, we were gonna launch with several layers that we've already got a lot of content in the bank for, but we have stripped it down. It will be literally a daily check-in, right? So there's all kind I've been, around kind of the mental health, wellness, sobriety scene for 12 plus years. Like, there's a lot of data that shows, just having a daily check-in for yourself on a daily basis, where you're like essentially like a spot check. Like, what did you do well today? Like, what could you have done better? Like, what are you grateful for, and what are you not carrying into tomorrow? So we still haven't got the full. There'll be 5 questions every day. We still haven't got the final 5 yet, so I don't want to, quote those. But essentially, encouraging people to do that every single day. Could people gamify that? Absolutely, but
but
really,
then
and
how crappy are you going to feel about
well,
yourself
that's it,
after?
right? Like, you are literally cheating yourself and nobody else,
Right,
right,
right.
by doing that. And so, you know, I can't go too in depth about like kind of the metrics of it, but what we are planning is essentially, if you were to bet on yourself that you're going to do that for 30 days, if you miss a day, right? If in fact, let's back up. If you complete those 30 days, you get your money back, right? If you do not complete those 30 days, you lose your money. Now, where does that money go? It goes into a community pot, okay? If you complete those 30 days, not only do you get your money back, but you get a chance to win a portion of what's in that pot. I know. That's where it gets really exciting.
That is very cool.
We are like, MVP is ready to go. We're addressing a problem that exists. It's an industry problem. Believe it or not, wellness apps have a 95% drop off rate. We fix that with this protocol.
Yeah, the retainment that you'll have. I mean, you're incentivizing people with their own money.
Yep.
So it's like, yeah,
And
it sounds
the beauty of it is it's going to be on crypto rails, but we will not talk about it being on crypto rails because we'll be using Privy, and everything will be credit card. It will be email. It will look very native to what folks are used to, because as soon as you mention crypto, there's a 95% trust factor that you lose. So we're going very kind of old school app native on this.
I think that's the way to go. Honestly, I think, first off, I think that's such an awesome idea. Congratulations on your sobriety. I think I've had a bunch of people that have been affected by alcoholism in my life, and they took, the right path forward and rectifying that, and their lives are significantly better. So that's awesome, and I think this app could definitely lead to more people having success with their sobriety, right? So that's really cool. But I also think another thing too is like the way you're describing it doesn't necessarily have to be for people that are struggling with addiction at all.
Well, that's the thing. Like,
Yeah,
that's why I say we've gone with a very simplistic, like, this is for everybody. This is a general well-being check-in accountability app that we're going to launch it with as Wellfi. But the protocol itself, we are thinking much broader. We're going to go to your Duolingo. We're going to go to your gyms. We're going to go to anything that is required for, essentially incentivizing habit. Like we could see this going to employers using it to essentially, motivate their staff, reward their staff. And there's a lot of really exciting things bubbling for this. And we're about to enter a
Absolutely.
pre-seed. So hit me up if you're interested in investing.
Sounds good to me. Yeah, it's so cool. So I don't know if you knew that about Startup Radar, but that's kind of a part of the whole
Mm,
spiel is
really?
we're trying. So like, absolutely. So I came from a traditional finance background. I worked at a VC for a hot cup of coffee. I worked at Morgan Stanley for a number of years. Um, Worked for a merchant bank on Wall Street, and but all of that after working on the Hill. And when I got to Web3, I was like, man, there are so many cool founders without the like you were alluding to with the artists, like that don't have trust funds, that don't come from money, but are very creative, very innovative, and talented people that just don't have access to social networks,
Yep.
social capital, and actual like capital. So the idea with Startup Radar was build an ecosystem of founders like yourself, introduce them to VCs, introduce them to angel investors, and just get their voice out there. It's not so much me as it is for you to be able to talk about Wellfi. I'm so glad. I didn't even realize we were going to talk about Wellfi until the like last couple of minutes.
Well,
But
it's funny, Jeff, because I actually pinged Brock right before I said I should have told you I'm going on this startup radar. Can we publicly talk about it yet? And he's like, sure, because so you're getting the alpha. This is the first time we're publicly talking about it.
amazing. And that's what this is for. And so we were talking about community and like the channels page. That's what I've wanted it to be initially when I first launched. Granted, it's only been around for like a month and a half, so like it's still undefined. I don't even know if channels are going to be around in like 6 months' time. Dan has been talking about
This
getting rid of
question.
it, and Kira's may like I don't know, but like what I'm trying to accomplish here is one, like provide founders with two like vital things. One, like getting people that are going to be critical of an MVP, and then two, access to capital. So I can talk to you a bit more offline about like what that's going to look like with the capital piece. But as far as like what I'm building right now, God, I just looked at myself and then I look like such a freak right now. But no. But I just looked all cockeyed and stuff. But anyway, I'm ADD as well. So what I was saying though is one thing like building out an MVP, if you go to your friends, they're going to tell you how great it is. But if you go to a bunch of users that are just like, I want to improve this app and I want the like founder to be rewarded with my honest feedback, I think that's invaluable. There's so many founders that I've had on the show. I've taken the time to like go through their MVP or whatever they've built out and give critical feedback. It's positive and negative. I don't hold back. And I think they value that so much. And then I don't have the time because I have three other things that I'm doing that like I feel bad for them because they need that feedback and I can't give it to them. So a solution for that is bringing an audience that is like-minded that wants to give that feedback to help them improve.
100%.
So that's kind of the community that I'm trying to build. So like if you're a founder, drop your MVP when you're ready to, and then end users, community members, pro users or power users rather, go in there, play with it, and then give commentary back on what that app and mini app is. And like where you're seeing bugs, where you're seeing where it could be improved, ideas, etc. And then so the app that I'm building right now is going to be just that, where we're incentivizing end users. And then let's say you have a native token with Wellfi, just hypothetically speaking. If you have your profile with the Startup Radar app, end users will be able to provide that feedback based on the parameters that you're setting those. So similar to like Gigbot, where if like you're like, hey, I've allocated $500 to this Gigbot. Here's the bug that we're faced with. Here are the things we're trying to improve. Please give us your reviews. Best answers are going to get tipped out. So like trying to get the flywheel going, not only for you to reward and then also get loyal customers and users, but then additionally all of the people taking the time to go give you good feedback are getting paid as well.
Great.
So
And so needed. Like, I'm already thinking about, like, what if who's in our launch circle for our beta, like, hitting up Tody and Melissa Burr and, folks that I've built a network with. So I think if you can do that at scale, you you're in a good spot. It's definitely something that's needed.
for sure. And especially, but I think here's the thing, like to your point, I like these are pain points that I've had. I want to help these founders. I just can't do it for all of them. And I also can't take the time for each one of them to go through. But there's other people that are on Farcaster that are not technical, that are power users that want to be able to contribute. Going full circle of what this conversation is when we were talking about networking, it's like, okay, if you're not a builder, if you're not an entrepreneur, and you're just here on the sidelines, like how do you provide value to the people that are building, that are strategizing, et cetera? Man, give them commentary and then they get paid for it.
Yeah.
So
Love it.
hopefully it works out. Hopefully Brock is available and could help.
If not Brock, I can definitely put some feelers out for you for sure.
I appreciate it. But yeah, no. And then with Wellfi, whenever you're ready, because this will be delayed, this recording will be delayed as long or as little as you would like. And we'll put all of the information of whatever you'd like to share about it.
Great.
Amazing.
Well, I think we're good to go. As long as it doesn't go out this week, I think anytime after next week, we're great.
Perfect. Yeah, no, whenever you want. And then, yeah, just let me know. But Rachel, it's been an absolute pleasure. This has been so fun. And I think this is the longest recording I've ever done. So
you said to me, you Joe Rogan style. I was like, I'm getting comfy. I'm ready.
Yeah, no, I mean, think about, we covered so much. I'm so thankful. But yeah, like hopefully we can keep the conversation going on all fronts.
Absolutely.
A pleasure to meet you. This was
Likewise.
Awesome.
And thank you for everything that you're doing. This is really exciting.
Let's get you back on once Wellfi's launched and then we can talk further.
Sounds great, Jeff. Thank you.
Amazing.
So much. Enjoy.
Thank you. Cheers.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.